they would be very interested in that, and I'll definitely do that, Joe. I'll make that second suggestion for sure. I've actually been asked now to be a guest speaker at the Cardiff Wales Club here coming up. Not really sure what they want me to talk about, but they've asked me to do that. So
That's cool.
yeah, I think from a Rotary standpoint, I mean, this kind of, the whole idea behind Rotary is building bridges and crossing cultural divides and that sort of thing. And, I could see this as being, a good way to do that. I think as we look to the future, the traditional Rotary format needs to adapt to, the realities of where we are in the world,
No doubt.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll get you on this. I'll get you on the schedule.
All right.
Well, I saw that it looks like we're live streamed. Is that right? We're good to go. If so, I'll call us to order.
Yeah, we are live now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Zach. Welcome everybody to our board meeting. It does look like we have a quorum, and we're virtual, so we don't need to worry about bringing anybody in otherwise. So our first agenda item is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. And do we hear any corrections to the minutes? I have a couple actually. One is under the welcome when I made the motion to accept the virtual attendees, that was approved. So we probably need to remark that that was approved in the minutes. Any other corrections to the minutes from our last meeting? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Len.
Second.
Thanks, Mark. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, so I wanted to give just a brief report on what I've been doing since our last meeting. One thing that I think we made you aware of in the meeting was that we were going to have a discussion of the science talks that we're hosting in Waynesboro, and that was put together by the CCR to have a little set to about whether or not these science talks are meeting our goals and what we want to do in the coming season. Several of us were there. Mark joined us. Joe was there. Greg, I don't remember if Greg was there.
Greg wasn't there. It was me.
Right.
I was not there.
Jenna was there.
Jenna was there. Yeah.
Al sent notes.
Yeah. And Hal helped organize it and captured the thoughts from it. And I don't think there's a lot to it other than that. One of the things we talked about was trying to make it a little bit more engaging and have maybe some opportunity for the audience to participate in some way, perhaps bring an artifact and have that looked at by one of the curators at the museum, maybe to demonstrate some different skills. Irby was there and mentioned that he is able to nap flints. And so something like that might come along. And then there were some suggestions for different speakers. So we're working on that series. That'll begin in September. I think we've already identified our first speaker as having to do with the hawk migration. The other thing that I did was participate in Riverfest, and I think we're going to hear a little bit more about that from Mary Zell, so I won't steal her thunder. But I did also want to share with you that Emmett did officially announce his retirement. So that does bring to the fore how we advocate for the museum project in the coming legislative session. Now, he'll be in office until January, so we can certainly take advantage of his support that he's given us in the past for the up till January. And I certainly think we could use his help in getting it into the budget for the next biennium. I also asked if I could share a couple of slides, and Mary Zell, I guess I can do that from my end. Is that right?
Yes, you should be able to screen share.
Okay. Let me go ahead and open that. So you should be able to see now a map showing the delegates districts. Is that showing up?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And one of the things that you'll note is we are in District 36, which now extends south into Stewart's Draft and as far as north part of Lexington. And Waynesboro and Stanton look kind of like a couple of ears on top of that district. So we're kind of tacked on the northern end there. Also want to show, see if I can advance this slide. Oh, the Senate districts. So this is something that affected Emmett and made his decision to retire. Maybe played into what he decided to do. And so the District 2 now doesn't include Waynesboro. And now we are part of District 3. And so that changes kind of the layout of the potential candidates for that district. I think we had questions about this when we were looking at this before. And once again, we kind of look like a couple of rabbit ears on top of that district. Then, of course, we have our congressional district 6. And that I don't think changed. And then the last slide that I have to share with you is our current representatives are John Avoli in terms of Waynesboro, John Avoli and Emmett Hanger, and Ben Klein as our representative in the House on the US side. And then, of course, Tim Kaine and Warner as senators. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think we had some discussion about how the districts might affect our representation in the future. Other than that, I don't have any real updates. And I guess I'll ask Mary Zell to give us a review of the Riverfest.
Sure. We had a pretty successful booth last Saturday at Riverfest. There was an Tom, I think you estimated about 3,000 people attended based on what you told me, which was a great turnout. We sold t-shirts, sold about 40 shirts, got quite a few folks signed up for our newsletter and just spread the word about the project. So all in all, it was a pretty successful event. And we sort of jumping down the agenda, I've seen something about the newsletters coming up as well. And Joe and I are working on drafting in the next edition for May. So that'll be coming out within the next week or so.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, I did notice a number of people signed up for regular updates on the project. So that was really good. And it's always great to stand there right in front of where the building is going to be raised and point to that and say, you know, in a couple of years, you can look over there and you'll see this. And we had the current design on a placard right at our booth too.
And it really helps people visualize it. It's easier than like the fall foliage fest where you're like explaining, like you walk down the street this way and turn this way, then you'll find it. So this is really good. Yeah.
And we had really regular traffic right from the get-go, starting at 10 o'clock in the morning and going all the way through until it started to slow down about 3:30 or 4 o'clock. So it was really, really good. And I thank the staff for bringing out all of the displays and engaging the community there. Any questions about Riverfest? All right, let's go ahead and hear about the state budget update then from Jonathan.
All right, so kind of left the previous meeting, throwing out a blurb about the state budget, but I just wanted to kind of refresh everybody on what's kind of going on. Is the 2-year budget has been passed, and we're obviously in that. Currently, other than a few corrective actions, the $150 million addition to education, where there was a shortfall there due to I guess essentially a rounding error. So a software error caused the $150 million shortfall there. They've corrected that with legislative action already. Moving forward, there doesn't seem to be, even talking to our budget analyst, there doesn't seem to be any movement on large changes. So any amendment that would have got us in, or it seems like they're just going to continue with business as usual, using this 2-year budget as kind of the benchmark going forward into fiscal year 24. So there's a lot of people are disappointed, just like us. So, you know, and it just kind of consistently is what it is going forward on that account. So, like we said, we hope to pursue the additional funding for the detailed planning. So SD submissions in, working on the preliminaries going forward. And July, probably August 1st, we'll know a lot more about when that money's coming to us. I just want to entertain any questions that any way I could help to clarify anything, really on that kind of, on the situation there.
So just to, I know you just said it, just to make sure I understand it. So nothing new on the funding for the exhibit design work, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you don't think it'll be till July before you'll know anything?
Well, I think we'll have a feeling in July, and then typically, if you just in general, it takes a while to get any funds allocated anyway. These original funds, the 750 we were allocated, we got it in February. So after it was approved July 1st, it came to us in February. So with approval and reallocation, I think August 1st is a better, maybe have something hard to rely on at that point, with just kind of the feeling that we'll get going into the new fiscal year. And I have not a large network, but a network of other agencies that I kind of reach out to, say, hey guys, you know, what do you see happening? Have you gotten your money? You know, do you plan to get your money? What's your budget analyst saying? And they're all lockstep at this point, just saying the same. You know, this is just, we're just using that 2-year budget. This is, you know, the funds were allocated. You're in line. Just be patient.
If they ask a question, yeah.
Yeah. So Jonathan, assuming that comes through, fingers crossed, how does that translate into our final phase of getting the museum built? Do we have to adjust our schedule at all for breaking ground and completion?
So hopefully not yet. In best case scenario, I would say that we're working on, if it comes through, you know, July 1st, then we get funds. I think that there's some remaining dollars from the original allocation that we can use to get going on preliminaries while we're waiting for the allocation. And I think Glave Homes will work with us on that. But really the goal is to have another hard cost estimate or something very close to that going into October. So we can get that to the legislative office, and then we can get moved over that capital pool.
So we're looking at requesting funds in 24, correct? For the final
24,
construction.
Right. So it'll be going into the legislative session into the fall. We'll be requesting to be moved to the capital pool July 1st, so it'll be fiscal year 25, or actually 24. So.
And I think that what I learned from the previous budget cycle is if we can get ourselves in the governor's budget, so before we even have to go to Richmond, it's
Right
in his budget, and then all we have to do is advocate for the General Assembly to support that.
So I feel like I've been kind of out of the loop lately, and I apologize for that. Just, you know, I've been breaking out a little bit. But anyway,
You go, girl.
it's about time. It's been 3 years. But so do we know how the governor views this project?
Well,
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the kind of hardest thing that we can say, you know, as opposed to trying to kind of be too subjective here, is that we are in the 6-year capital outlay as a priority 1 project. So we're already there. So it is legislation, it is in black and white that we are legally obliged to complete this project, right? And you know, I don't know how often those priority designations switch around. So if you go into the 6-year capital outlay and you go in as a say priority 2, do you ever move up to a priority 1 or vice versa? That I don't know, But, that's the hardest thing that I'll say is that, we're already there in line. And we have to get funded sooner rather than later.
So what's the worst case scenario, right? So let's say we hope that things happen in August, and if that happens, we get a final cost estimate by October that we can then get to the committees so that we can get in, the General Assembly. Let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say you don't get that funding until January of next year. What does that do to the timeline? Does that say that the General Assembly is probably going to say, well, you're still priority one, but we don't want to fund you until you have a final number?
I think that pushes us off a year, doesn't it, Jonathan?
So it'll be.
Or two, maybe, if it's a 2-year budget, right?
We'll essentially still take the cost estimate that we have, hopefully in October, regardless of how far along preliminaries are, and we'll go for the next 2-year budget cycle, right? So it won't be fiscal year July 1st, fiscal year 25. It'll be July 1st, fiscal year 26 to probably break ground and start construction. So it would be about a year difference.
Okay. Yeah. So we look at August. We keep our fingers crossed, our toes crossed, do a little holy water and pray a bit to get this thing for August, I guess. And if it starts sliding, then we can start plan B, contingency planning, I guess.
And just to kind of riff on Faye's question too, there's a group, they call it the 6-pack. It's legislators, but mainly just kind of the normal budget office people. So it's the budget office, it's the Department of Engineering, but planning, and they kind of make the decision on which projects are ready. Hence, we just need a strong showing to get this preliminary stuff done. Which projects are ready? Who we put first, who we put in second. When's that money coming in? And then they put us in the governor's budget as a recommendation to the legislature. So it'll be like a line item. If you guys are familiar with the detail planning, kind of how it's just a line item. That's how we'll be entered in the governor's budget. In
the capital outlay.
Correct. Yeah.
Do we expect any turnover in the 6-pack?
No,
Okay.
I don't believe so. Michael, the same group is still there currently, and I believe there was no turnover when the governor came into office, with any turnover in the legislature. So
That helps us.
Yeah.
We don't have to re-educate them on the project. So
Jonathan, in essence, what you're saying is it's less of a political issue, more of the administrators basically saying, we want to move this into funding, right? I mean, when they're comfortable with it, generally speaking, they move us into the list and everybody's just going to sign it essentially because it's already approved. Basically.
Right. They're looking at the nuts and bolts of it. They're looking at,
Okay.
This bond fund was issued and this, $1 billion was issued in 2022. This is what's funding this. And this is where these dollars are going. The legislature, our legislators have done their job. They've added us,
Okay.
they've added us to the budget. We're in there, we're in line. So
Okay.
it's just a matter of, tightening the screws on the.
There's less of a political risk than there is, less
Yeah,
the economy tanks or something.
So as before, we would expect that budget, the governor's budget to come out in mid-December. Is that right?
Yes.
And is there a role for us to play before mid-December in advocating for this?
I think if Waynesboro would like to hire a lobbyist, it would be a good time for that to happen. Or if we're going to do any kind of outreach to our legislators, maybe single office visits, kind of like you did Hanger this year, Tom.
Right. So that you still think that's valuable then for us to lobby our legislators and the Secretary of Education, let's say,
particularly before in the fall. Kind of like we saw this year, everything's kind of in writing by the time we head up there in February, and hopefully we'll be asking them to just continue their support of the project, which you alluded to earlier. Just that's the best way to be, is just to be in it from the very beginning and not be an amendment.
Right.
So this is Greg. One thing, and Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the current legislatures and the 6-pack will be putting the governor's budget together. However, come January 1st, the entire General Assembly and Senate is liable to be turned 100% upside down
Right.
because everyone is up for election in new districts.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. I'm nodding my head, Greg. And
Okay.
that's the way I
Yeah, I'm
see
sorry.
it
I'm
too.
driving. I can't see anything.
That's all right. Yeah.
So the six pack will remain very, very similar makeup.
And I
Okay,
think the
with all-
tradition, I could be wrong here, but I think the tradition is that that biennium budget is pretty much owned by the outgoing governor. And then the opportunity for the incoming governor doesn't happen until the next biennium budget. So I don't know that there's a tradition for a big change, come January 1 in the governor's budget.
Well,
Yeah,
Youngkin
not
will
to-
have two budgets, right, Craig?
Yeah, he does this one and he does the one that when he's ready to leave. But the
Legacy.
legislative, the R&Ds could be totally different when they vote on it.
Yeah.
Well,
So we just need to be, and I'm told by our lobby, the State Economic Development Association lobbyists, that we'll know, they'll be able to tell us pretty confidently after the June primaries how that's all going to shape up. Because there's only really a few, I'm quoting, only a few districts that could really go either way. So after the June primaries, we should have a better handle on all of that. Was what I'm told.
Are any of ours in that category?
Well, there's no, we're not, we'll probably all, the Senate will probably end up being Republican for us with Senate District 3. And there are 2 incumbents running in Senate District 3. And then Delegate Campbell, Mrs. Campbell is our current delegate. And I'm not sure whether any Democrat has announced yet against her or not.
Randall Wolf, I think, is going to run against her. But
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I missed that conversation earlier. Who are our 2 incumbents running for Senate District 3?
None. There are 0 incumbents running for our Senate district.
Oh.
Hmm.
So Obenshane's not running?
He's
No, he's
District
not.
2.
That's the
Yeah.
other district. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He's in
that's
District
Emmett's
2.
old district, and yeah, again, it doesn't include Waynesboro now.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
Deeds
Creed-
moved to Charlottesville. So
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, interesting. And we don't know nobody's declared yet that I know of. So
yeah, there's a Republican, I think, that declared, but I forget who that is. But
okay, should be interesting.
yes.
So there may be a role for us to play as that person is running to let them know about the project ahead of even
Yeah.
the primary.
Yeah. Our economic development strategy is after June is to go out and hit all the candidates.
Okay.
So I think we need to for this project, need to kind of follow suit as well and educate both R&Ds, and then it becomes part of what they're campaigning for. And then if once one of them gets elected, they'll all be well versed in what we're trying to accomplish.
That makes sense.
So speaking a little vaguely, because this is live and so forth, I would just like to propose that as an action item, that I reach out to Mr. Bryant, who I try to do not often because we're not a client of his, but he's been very kind in the past to answer some questions. And I think I would like to look for some advice as to where we put our autumn efforts, whether that should be in the more political realm of candidates and so forth, or should we be talking to the people who kind of do the nuts and bolts behind the scenes and so forth. So I'll see if I can get some input from him. And then from that, I think we might be able to target our efforts here going forward.
Good idea.
Any other questions about the state budget for Jonathan? All right, then Ryan's in the room. Okay, Ryan, there's an agenda item here for a potential grant opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So we have applied for a grant through the Community Foundation of the Central Blue Ridge. So it's not a huge grant, it's a $5,000 grant. But I just want to highlight that we'll find out anytime. Greg, you might have a better sense of when those come out, but my understanding is early May. So it's $5,000 for a combination of supporting the fall lecture series and also the upcoming need-based scholarship program. So it's pretty much a 50-50 split. So our thought was if we can get some funds to invest in the lecture series to, whether it's stipends, whether it's increased marketing, it's pretty flexible as far as the way it's written. So once we find out about that, hopefully we get that. There is a grant celebration event on June 7th. I'll actually be on vacation at that time. So it's something if we do get funded, definitely want to have a representation of the museum at that event. So it's pretty much a ceremonial kind of announcing of the grants. So having a representative, one or more representative there would be great. So yeah,
That's great.
pretty straightforward. I'll definitely keep everyone up to date on the progress of that. Hopefully hear back any day.
Excellent.
That's great. So is the submission in the name of the museum and the city, or one or the other?
It's under the museum, so it's through the VMNH Foundation.
Okay,
So we just kept it really straightforward and simple.
great. Well, that's exciting. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And Ryan, that's a great way to start building that relationship. That was a smart move. I don't know if you came up with that or what, but it was a good
Oh,
move.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Well done. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments about that? So I don't know, Jonathan, if you have more to say about the detailed design submission. I guess you do. So we'll go ahead and move to that. Is that right?
Yeah, I can hit it pretty quickly. All
Okay.
documents have been submitted to Department of Engineering and Building for our schematic design. So that just the first half of the detailed design process. That involved just a lot of drawings, indoor, outdoor, lay of the land, geotech, EIR. So there's several documents that went in successfully. So we're waiting to hear back to schedule a meeting with DEB. My hope is that we just get remarks on the drawings. So here are our remarks, continue what you're doing a great job. And then we'll be like, where is the money for the rest of it? But I wanted to highlight the value engineering study. We've had 2 done. So we had an original, well, the architects gave us their guess at what the cost would be. And we all remember that was roughly $1,000 a square foot. So round 1 of the value engineering study got us down to roughly $700 just for the building, right? Not the site work. So that was a success. And then we just today knew it was coming, just wanted to, I haven't even had a chance to really look through it all the way, but we've gotten that down another $40 per square foot, which that's roughly $1 million just in this second round. So saved about 6 or 7 first time. We did big things like decrease the ceiling heights across the board. That'll help us in the long run too, operationally, just heating and cooling. So that was, it's a great move there. And then this time we did things like taking the surrounds in different rooms and turning them to like a hard, durable rubber. Nothing that would aesthetically alter or change anything, but just the materials. Kind of looked at a more detailed look at that. So roughly, I think $8.5 million in savings over the course of a few negotiations with the AE firm. So it got us more in line with today's number as far as what we asked for going into this session. Obviously, with inflation, that number will increase as we go into October, which material cost of goods and labor.
So is that new estimate or after the value engineering, the one that you submitted to DEB for review, is that what you're waiting on their comments from?
Mm-hmm. So there'll be that plus a CR2, which we're working with JMU to create, kind of goes in, but their main goal is to look over all the drawings, and then they'll have the numbers in front of them as well. So
okay,
it was successful.
Any questions about the detailed design submission? Schematic design phase.
Yes,
Jonathan.
Kind of jump right into that on the so schematic design, right, wrap that up. Next steps is preliminaries. So preliminaries are even more detailed. We're looking at different furnishings. We're looking at what desk is going where, office space, occupiable space. What are we putting? What the details, right? So we're getting into the details as far as furnishings go. So interior finishings, classroom ceilings, acoustical panels, that kind of thing. So working through that and then going to the exhibits. I think the exhibits part will absolutely have an impact on preliminary designs. So reason just kind of looking at the agenda, more to come is I believe we're going to work internally. Maybe I can let Joe elaborate on this a little bit to structure those teams to work with the narrative that the AE firm gave us to kind of get something more presentable going into that, the beginning of the preliminaries. Not that it's not presentable now, just some footnotes and highlights along that timeline to help direct the exhibit designers.
Yeah, we're doing a couple of things while we're kind of holding fire at the moment. One, we're accumulating the PowerPoint slides from our various speakers over the years for the lecture series at the Wayne Theater. And from that, we're going to use that to kind of guide some of the stories. I mean, we all know what some of the main stories are going to be, but we think we can start to extract some of these very specific stories, like the stories about the wren singing around the South River versus remoter areas and so forth. That's just one example. Another would be the vernal pools and so forth. So that's going to be an easy way to start to kind of assemble kind of some community input after the fact with those lectures and so forth. But yeah, so we know going through the first few months here of the detailed design process, it's fairly straightforward, fairly mechanical. We already knew what those main exhibit kind of topics were going to be. As we begin to drill down into some of the specific stories, that's where we're going to be looking at our exhibit design team and our colleagues to help with that. The curators as well will be great in-house assets for that and so forth. So, but that's when we're going to be kind of more working, again, going back to work with the Briggs Ward design. So we have a plan in place. We'll be getting what we can do in advance. So we're not just sitting on our hands over the next couple of months. And then we'll just take things from there.
Are you still planning to bring a team up on Monday? I think that was in the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes.
Up to Waynesboro.
Yeah. What time are we departing, Mary?
8:30 a.m.
We're leaving 8:30 a.m. So that puts us up there sometime around 11, maybe 11:30. Right. I believe there's 8 staff going and whatnot. So I think Carol had offered to meet with them and so forth. So basically what we're going to do is we're taking new staff. That includes some of our scientists who have not yet been, because they are so new, they have not been up to the Waynesboro area, the Shenandoah Valley, Blue Ridge, and so forth. So we're going to give them a driving tour, walking tour, and whatnot. And if anyone wants to come by and say hello, give me a call, send me a text or something like that. So yeah, it should be pretty straightforward.
And I will send out the itinerary to the full committee if that would be helpful for everyone, just so you can have an idea of what they'll be experiencing.
Well, I think that's really good. And I think that'll help inform the narrative that you're trying to put together in-house. And yeah. I know that we had a conversation about that last meeting as well. I know I sent a couple of presentations to Mary Zell, and I think at some point you're going to share the folder that has that information outside of in-house, or?
Yeah, Mary Zell's already put together kind of a template for us. So we're starting to add to that. And as we get in these presentations, so you know how it is. You send out a mass email and a percentage reply. So we're starting to kind of dig around to try to procure some more. And then we'll have that kind of narrative that we can all work on together. That it'll be in a shared document that all of you have access to.
Okay. Questions about the conclusion of the schematic design phase, exhibits?
Nope.
And Joe, maybe this is a Jonathan question as well. When do we have a hard stop in terms of the funds that we have available to do this exhibit design work?
Well, we're under contract with Riggs Ward Design as a subcontractor with Glave Homes. So all of that had to be within the original $1.14 million. I hope I'm answering your question right. So
But we only have 750 of the 1.1.
right, but we smartly, I think, we put a pause option between schematic design and preliminaries. So we put in the option to say we will not move to preliminaries without specific permission from the museum, right? That was because at the time we only had, well, we were about like whatever the number is, $390,000 short. So we did not want to start preliminaries until we knew we could pay for it all. As Jonathan alluded to earlier, I think once we get all our approvals from DEB and the Architectural Review Board and stuff, we can talk with Glave Homes about how much they want to play ball with us. But what we don't want to do is put ourselves in a position where we start the process, get some bills and be like, well, guys, you know, we're good for it. You know, we'll give it to you. You know, we just need to get it from the state first. We don't want ourselves in that jeopardy. So I'm taking kind of a conservative approach with that. And that's why I want to do maybe some work with you all, with the curators, with our presenters, and whatnot, and begin to formulate some ideas. So when we do engage Riggs Ward, we already have a lot of decisions made about specimens that we want to use, the specifics to the stories that we want to tell. You know we want to talk about, for instance, salamander endemism as a great idea, but maybe that's where we're at now, but maybe we go into that discussion already knowing the whatever 3 or 5 case studies that we think are to be the most illustrative of the story, and also the stories that we can support with our specimens, or the stories that we know that we can procure specimens in the near future that will support those stories, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, if the board wants me to, we can try to move forward with preliminaries. I'm just afraid that we put ourselves in a position where we're gonna owe a bill that we can't pay.
No, I like the conservative approach. You definitely don't want to have them billing hours that you can't pay. That's not a good situation to be in. So
No, I agree. So it's too much of a chance for too little reward.
Right. So basically it's going to be a stop before preliminary design.
It's going to be a stop with Riggs Ward. We're going to continue it again
With Riggs Ward. Okay.
in-house. Yeah. And then basically, hopefully in a couple of 3 months, we're giving them a big brain dump of all this information that they can synthesize, and that should speed the process up.
Okay. That helps. All right. I guess I'm on the agenda to talk about continued community connection. Certainly did hold the science lecture on April 11th with regard to the Southern Appalachian brook trout. I think it was an interesting talk and shared by John Ross and Eric Hallerman, with a novel idea that brook trout arrived from the Pacific Northwest through this historic watershed. And because of a fossil that they found out in that area that appears to be a prehistoric brook trout, I guess you might call it. And then this idea that during the glaciation, there were refugia that the brook trout retreated to, and that resulted in the distinction between a strain of brook trout that exists in where we are and a little further south. The ones further south, they actually sought refuge in the Gulf of Mexico, which is kind of strange to think about brook trout living in the Gulf of Mexico, but you know, that's what climate does, moves animals around. Yep. So it was a good talk, and it's on YouTube now. I know that Zach updated the link, so that's there. With regard to the public hours, Len stood in for me because Joe and I attended a party with the Potomac Riverkeeper Network, which was an interesting connection as well, community connection. But Len, do you have anything to say about the public?
Yeah, just for Faye's benefit, so she's ready to roll when she gets there. So
thank you.
We had, I don't know, I guess 8 or 9 people. I knew almost everybody. It was interesting. They started rolling in about 10 minutes to the hour, and they were interested in CCR, how this whole project got started. I think the general, feedback I got was most everybody was there investigating potential volunteer opportunities. So I don't know if when you want to start collecting lists of people's names, I didn't I know who they are, I can tell you, but I didn't collect any names, but might want to start a mailing list or I don't know, Tom, do you usually put out like a contact list for them to fill their information in? Because I didn't do that.
I took some notes about each session, and in cases where
Yeah.
somebody volunteered or thought they would volunteer when the museum
Yeah.
arrived, I tried to make a remark about that. But
Okay, so Shasta Weeks, who's works at the Augusta Chamber of Commerce and also is a member of the Destination Downtown Board, attended, and she's willing to notify the chamber members each month when these public hours are available. So she wanted to know who she should contact, and Zach, I directed her to you. She said she had your contact information. So I don't know if she's reached out yet or not, but anyways, that would be a great connection because there are a lot of community, obviously a lot of businesses as members of that organization. There was, I mentioned the farmers market, group. I don't know if they'll show up again or not. I don't think so. The feeling I got was that they felt like they weren't getting any information from anybody regarding what's going to happen to the pavilion and where they're going to end up. And I told them that they should contact Joanne Jones or Parks and Rec because they were really in control of South River Preserve. I also emphasized that Joe was very, amenable to looking for opportunities to partner, and that, in my opinion, there was opportunity for the farmers market and the museum to partner on some potential opportunities, just given the nature of what they're doing and what the museum's all about. So that, I think they felt good about that. It was a young couple, they're farmers in Stewart's Draft. The only other comment they made, other than just passing on that, some of the older folks in town questioned the parking question. And I, showed them the map of the South River Preserve and said, there's going to be parking incorporated into this new design that I don't really think you're losing. And I may have misspoken here, but I don't think in total numbers you're going to lose parking spaces. It's just going to be redistributed differently. But they didn't really follow up too hard on that. Then the only other comment that they made was about the industrial damage done to the river, and that should be interpreted in the museum. And I told them that, yeah, we've discussed that as part of, telling the story of the watershed. I mentioned some of Carol Nash's work and how, she's a member of the Board of Trustees, and then emphasized that there's going to be some community, meetings, opportunities for community members to come and voice their suggestions and concerns, and they should stay, keep their eyes and ears open for those dates when they start rolling out. So generally speaking, I asked everybody if they had heard any negatives, or not negatives, but what kind of feedback were they hearing in the community? And nobody said that they've heard anything negative. It's all been pretty positive, but they almost unanimously said that they didn't really know anything about it. So once again, despite all these efforts,
Wow.
in marketing, it's amazing. Car dealers will spend $40,000 to $50,000 a month in Waynesboro for advertising. And that's, all media, right? So that's newspaper, TV, radio, the whole package. And they do it consistently every month. And that's what they have to do to attract customers. So it just kind of illustrates the fact that in the marketing world, it's really constant communication, consistency in message, and repeat. And no matter how hard you try, there's still pockets out there that you're not getting. So I've asked everybody in the room to, invite their friends and neighbors, that Faye was going to be holding the thing in May, and that they should, offer, tell their neighbors and friends to come on down and learn more about it.
This is one of the questions that I was going to ask about how is this open forum being marketed? You mentioned the chamber. Have they been advertising regularly, or is this the first time that they've asked to have information about the forum?
My impression from Shasta is they've never advertised, so hopefully this will be the first one.
That would be, I think, really helpful. And how about the library itself? I assume that they're doing something, signage or
they put it on their social media.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether there's physical signage in the library. And then, of course, the other thing that we've taken advantage of is TV coverage. We've had a couple of.
And that was that was unanimously, everybody mentioned WHSV's coverage from like a month or two ago. So,
Yeah.
Ryan and Zach, I don't know if we can keep, maybe channel 29, keep that, media coverage. I know that both stations have a community connections free, listings. And Joe, by the way, channel 29 and their 4 o'clock hour does a community connections interview. One of their anchors interviews a local nonprofit. I know Maggie's shaking her head or nodding her head because, the Y's probably been on there once a month since they started doing that. And they're always looking for opportunities to sit with a nonprofit to find out what's going on.
All right, cool.
Tom, you have, I think, did you share with me a PowerPoint? I think you did, that you used.
Yes, yeah, and that's the one I think Len used as well.
And you
It
used
is.
it? Okay.
Yeah. I just put it on rotation.
I think that's what I was going to do. And there's a screen there.
Yeah, projector and a screen.
Projector and a screen. Okay. I've got a computer.
There's a media person next door that will help you set it up if you need the help or whatever.
All right. Well, if I have any questions, I'll just call one of you.
That's fine. Yeah. And Rachel has been really helpful. And we probably, if we want to continue this, we need to let her know so that she reserves those dates for us into the future.
I think we're just now starting to maybe move the needle a little bit in terms of outreach. So I would think that even though it's only, Faye, we filled the room. We had to bring another chair in.
That's great.
So you can only get about 8-9 people in there with the table. And I stood, but I think, it's only 8 or 9 people at a time, but I kind of get the sense, Tom, that things are starting to maybe, build a little bit of momentum.
We had, at Riverfest, we had people stop by and some had heard about the project and they were very excited about it. And then there were others, I think, was it Mary Zell even told me that there was somebody who lived like 3 blocks away, had never heard of it.
Wow.
Despite the fact that there's a sign in the parking lot there, and we've been out to Fall Foliage Festival and Riverfest and held, events there in the DuPont lot and all of this. So you're right. I mean, it just takes a lot of time and continuing effort to get that awareness up.
Yeah, people, they say that, repeat the message 7 times before people begin to listen. Early in my career, as a sales analyst, I used to measure our effectiveness on the marketing programs. And what I learned was after you get them to hear that first message, it can take 90 days to engage them before you can start a sales cycle, so that one hook kind of gets their attention and then takes a little time to actually engage them in what you're trying to accomplish. So yeah, I think we just got to keep the hardcore press going.
Yeah. And I'm happy that you got 8 or 9. That's great. And I think if we continue to get that monthly, it's worth doing. So I would say let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to send out a notice to some of the people I know in Waynesboro, which is not far fewer than what Lynn can report. But, I have some friends that are associated with garden clubs and things like that, might be interested in knowing more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And Joe, Len Doran showed up as well.
Good.
And I had a long conversation with him afterwards, and he and I are going to just to take a trip down there soon, probably within the month. I think we'll come down for a half a day.
That'd be great. And just make sure you let us know. So if I'm not here, Ryan, greet you guys, or curator for, bringing Len behind the scenes in the vaults.
Yeah. He offered up a couple of really interesting ideas, partnership ideas and ways to kind of raise money, when we get to that point. So definitely worth talking more about.
Super.
So a quick look ahead suggests June 16th would be another one. And then July, July 21 would be another 3rd Friday, and August 18. So if we want to continue it through the summer, we probably need to let Rachel know about those dates.
And Tom, I'm willing to step in, anytime, if you don't want to.
The June one I can actually do, but I think probably the July one and August one I might need.
Yeah.
coverage.
August may be an, well, no, I think probably both, maybe. I don't know. We'll just see. But yeah, anytime you need, somebody to fill in.
Yeah, and I think it's good that we rotate it around so you see a different face,
Yeah.
even if they do come to two of them.
Yeah.
I'm actually out of town all 3 of those dates, but
Okay,
I can probably pick up in September.
that works. All right, I think we're down to the open discussion part of the agenda. Is there anything I wanted to bring up? Joe?
Regarding open discussion, I'll actually connect back to continued community connection. Please jump in. I just found out today that Christy Dethridge has a program in Waynesboro on May 21st, the day after our board meeting. It's a Sunday afternoon. Do you remember what she's?
It's at a community event. It's at the middle school, at Kate Collins Middle School, but it's not just for middle school students. It's for like any families with kids, about just like summer learning opportunities and that type of thing.
Kind of into the academic year, like Maryville, learning about resources for summer camps and programs.
So Christy will be there from 1 to 4 that day.
Well, that's cool. Who invited her? Did the school system reach out to her?
She invited herself.
You go, girl, Krista.
They've done events with Kate Collins before in the past, particularly for Charlottesville educators.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's great news. I need to touch base with her anyway about working at K Collins, because we have some students that we're going to be introducing to K Collins for the mentoring program. So
Nice.
All right, related, June 10th, we're gonna, just like with Riverfest, we'll have different specimens, but we're gonna set up a similar kind of situation in grottos at the Grand Caverns Cave Day.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
That's
Yeah,
great.
looks
Very
like it'd be pretty big, and maybe on a smaller scale, but it sounds like it's shaping up. We, or at least I, am going to be on Sunday, July 30th at Klein's Ice Cream. They're doing an 80th celebration. So,
Did you get invited, or is that one you absolutely?
Yeah, I bet he lobbied for that.
no, they invited us actually on that one. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Be sure to try their raspberry if they have it. It's great.
The blueberry so far is my favorite, Faye, but we'll see how the raspberry stacks up.
You said that's May 31st?
July 30?
Sorry, yeah, July 30th. It's a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
They're still working out the details, sounding like something like a 2 to 5.
I may have to join or come down and visit you.
Yeah, me too.
Do the natural history of berries or in
Yeah.
chocolate.
So I'm curious to hear more about the that Potomac Riverkeepers meeting. So can you give us a quick rundown on that? How'd it go? In other words, I mean, what kind of connections did we make?
It was a really good group, I thought, Joe, in the room, representing everything from the Virginia Conservation Network to a number of other nonprofits that are active in Virginia, and the Potomac Riverkeeper Network, of course, being a significant one. And the director, Nancy Stoner, was there. She, of course, is a Waynesboro product. She grew up in Waynesboro, grew up on the river, apparently.
Yeah.
And
Mark
so
Stoner's daughter.
she has a place in her heart for Waynesboro. And we had a number of folks from Waynesboro, actually, because it was across the ridge. It was kind of interesting, and mostly it was Charlottesville folks. But there were a few of us that came over from Waynesboro, including myself, Irby, Nash, Max Quillen. And then Joe was there to represent a museum as well. I
sure
wore my
Nancy was-
museum badge, so I introduced myself to lots of folks and tried to tell them about the project. So I think it was good to raise awareness there.
I'm sure Nancy was happy to see Irby. I know last time I spoke with her, she was asking about him.
Yeah, and she followed up. She's asked me for an opportunity to meet in Waynesboro sometime in the next month or two.
Beautiful.
So we're going to do that.
That's great.
Joe, I don't know if you had anything to add.
I just say they're all of like mind. These are very conservation oriented people, and I would just in my humble estimation, while it's important to talk to all of them, the most important relationship to continue to cultivate is Nancy. So I think we were able to do that quite well.
Were there any donors in the room?
I think all of them are, right?
Okay.
Otherwise they wouldn't, and donors to outside of Max and Tom and Irby, I don't know that any of them were familiar enough with the project to be a donor to our efforts, but they're all supporters of Potomac River Keeper Network.
Yeah, good deal. Yeah, that's good.
I don't know if they pay $1,000 for a glass of water, Len, but you know,
Yeah. They weren't those, well, they weren't at the gala, were they?
I didn't get that impression, but I guess you never know.
Yeah, it depends on how motivated they are. Well, she went on to write about $30,000 worth more after that, including your bird watching thing.
Yeah.
So,
There were a number of retired UVA faculty there too that
Yeah.
I had a chance to chat with. So,
super.
anything else for open discussion?
Nope.
All right. Well, I'll take a motion to adjourn. And Joe, if you would mind staying on just a little bit, I have a topic I want to talk to you about.
Sure.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Len.
Second.
A second from Greg, and I guess we'll go ahead and adjourn, and we'll see each other in a month or so after the next board meeting. So I will be giving an update to the full board in a couple of weeks, and I'll let you know.
This is Len from Virginia, USA, signing off.
See ya.
Yeah.
See ya.
Later.
Thanks,